Welcome back, everyone, to the Burnout Club. This is a place where we explore burnout and success one expert and experiment at a time. I'm your host, Patrice Bonfiglio, and today I'm joined by Erin Stafford. She is the author, best-selling author of The Type A Trap. She is a well-known speaker and a peak performance expert. Oh, you're ready. I love it. So thank you so much for being on the show, Erin.
Thanks for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Yes, I love talking to folks that have been through burnout themselves. Also, people that have had tremendous success in the corporate realm. So you understand what's going on and you've come through it and now have an amazing business where you're really sharing so much information with companies and with people on how to mitigate and avoid burnout. So very excited to hear everything that you have to share with us today.
Yeah, I'm excited to chat with you. This will be fun.
Perfect. So why don't you give us a little bit of background so the listeners know who you are?
Yeah, so I am from Southern California. I live in San Diego, but really have lived kind of all over the world for my 20s and a lot of my 30s. I was a bit of a nomad. Have had all sorts of different careers, but they've all been in this sort of advertising, marketing, media, communications world. My last 6 years I spent as the head of marketing for the largest healthcare staffing company in North America. One could argue the world, world domination is what they're after. But it was a massive company, hyper growth. We grew 27x in the 6 years I was there. We were doing healthcare staffing during the pandemic. So you can imagine that was its own special kind of hell. Doing travel nursing, allied travel, locum tenens. It was crazy. While everyone else is like at home practicing their banana bread recipes, twiddling their thumbs, we were working 20 hours a day, 7 days a week. So yeah, there was a lot of burnout. We had about 50,000 clinicians working for us, thousands of corporate employees. I had 75 people on my team. I was managing like 8 different brands. Like it was a big operation. So lots of stress, lots of responsibility, big teams, big numbers, big budgets, and lots of burnout. So I burned out spectacularly a number of years ago. And it was really one of those moments where I have always been somebody who lives by this mantra: if I work hard, I win. And if I don't win, I didn't work hard enough. I mean, there's a reason the book's called The Type A Trap, okay? Yes. Because we think that we can do and accomplish and achieve anything just by outworking everybody. And yes, that works for a while, but it eventually catches up with you and eventually makes you burn out. And so, yeah, I had really this moment a number of years ago, post-pandemic, where I burnt out spectacularly. And it really caught me off guard because I am not somebody who burns out. I thought burnout was a load of BS that people used who like couldn't get their lives together. I'm like, you're burnt out? Like go take a nap and figure it out because nobody has time for this, you know? And so like I was so unsympathetic and just thought people were lame and couldn't get their lives together. And you know, and then like a lot of things, it happens to you and all of a sudden you start thinking about it differently.
Yeah, it all makes sense now.
I was like, oh, this is actually a thing. And so just really dove in after that and wanted to figure out how I get out of this, how I can continue to create a life that not only looks good on paper, but feels good. And a life where I can continue to thrive and achieve at high levels because that's who I am at my core. I'm a motivated, driven, ambitious person. Yeah. I want to continue to thrive and kick butt and achieve at high levels, but I wanted to do it in a way where I'm not burning out and ruining relationships and sacrificing my health at the same time. So that's really what started this journey into burnout. And now, what am I, like 6-ish years into this? And I speak full time all over the world. My book came out, The Type A Trap came out last year. And just spreading the good word on how to create a life that looks good and feels good.
Yes. And do you find that when you started this, since it was, 6 years ago, that the narrative around burnout was different than it is today? Because I'm seeing companies and individuals just very receptive to answers and information. But was it like that when you first started?
One of the good things that did come out of the pandemic was that it really shined light on mental health, on burnout, on overwhelm. Like it obviously was something that was happening before, people maybe didn't call it burnout. They may have just referred to it as work-life balance and that struggle. It's the same thing, you know? I think it evolves, the terminology changes, but it's really all the same issue that people have been grappling with for ages of like, how do you continue to work hard and support yourself and your family, but also be there and be healthy and have good relationships, you know? So I think the pandemic really created a lot of awareness about mental health, about burnout, about working and the lines that are really blurred, but especially when you're working at home between work and play. So I do think it created a lot more awareness on the subject. And I think people are a lot more just cognizant of it now and familiar with it and more open to talking about it. I think there's less shame involved in it now. Now, that's not to say high achievers don't still feel shameful if they are burning out. Like we think, oh God, did something wrong with me? Like I just have to work harder. You know, we think we can outwork our burnout, but I do think that there's just much more awareness and people are much more open and willing to talk about it now.
So just sticking with the theme of your book, right? And the type A trap, what is that and how can people avoid it, I guess?
Yeah. So, I mean, I call it the type A trap because look, being type A, being a very motivated, driven, ambitious person who has a lot of self-determination and who doesn't need external factors to get them fired up and motivated and excited, like that can be amazing. It can lead to exponential success, you know? What makes it a trap is that a lot of us are never satisfied. We're never happy. We're never satisfied because the second we accomplish one thing, we want to do it bigger, better, faster, quicker, whatever the next time. We are always chasing that next accomplishment, that next career high, that next promotion. And so it can feel like a trap because on the one hand, it's giving you this great success and you get accolades and you're getting paid more and people look up to you. But on the other hand, it can feel like a trap because you're never happy. You never get where you want to go. You're always moving the goalpost and you have this sense of sort of loss inside. I know I had this moment when I was like, okay, like I have the great job. I'm making good money. I report to the CEO. We're doing really good work. I have a big team. But I'm like, why am I so miserable? Why do I feel dead inside? Why am I so unhappy? Why this should be making me happy and it's not. And so I think it's taken a lot of time and reevaluation and reevaluating what success looks like, I think can be a big help in starting to get out of this trap. Because at some point, a lot of people realize the money and the job title, it ain't it. You know, like you can have the money and the job title and still be totally miserable. So what else is it? What else does that success look like? And how else can you tap into those feelings of things that light you up and fire you up and get you excited?
What was that process like? So once you realize like, okay, something's not right here. I should be feeling all these amazing things. It's not the right path that I'm on. How did you get to the point where you found some answers internally? Like what does soul searching look like? And something practical so people can try to do that.
Yeah. Well, I swung completely in the opposite direction. Which like the true little achiever I am, you know, I was like, oh, I'm struggling. Great. Let's solve this problem, you know? And so I did what I call recovery bingo, where I was like, okay, I'm going to do every recovery thing under the sun. And so I took a week off work and I learned how to do transcendental meditation because my parents did it back in the like 70s and they swore by it. I was like, what the hell? I'll give it a try, you know? And, got my mantra and did all this stuff and learned transcendental meditation. I was going to chiropractor. I was getting facials. I was going to yoga and Pilates. I was trying to journal. I was, I was doing everything under the sun. I was going to breath work workshops. I did the Hoffman process, which is like this super woo-woo 7 days off the grid thing. Have you done it? You're nodding.
No.
Do you know what it is?
No, I know a little bit about it. Say more for the listeners.
It's definitely the most woo-woo thing I've ever done. And there were moments where I was in there and I was like, what the hell did I sign up for? But I was like, you know what? I'm here. Screw it. I'm just going to lean in. I'm going to do it. Stop being Judge Judy and just go for it and do it. It's off the grid. So like no phone, no email, no television, no internet, nothing. There's only 30 people and you're with the same 30 people for the 7 days. And you do all sorts of inner work on a lot of it's around your childhood, but it really talks about the patterns that you have inherited from your parents or your guardians and how those have affected you and how those are showing up in your life today. And so I went during a really difficult period in my life and it was very insightful. But yeah, I kind of just played recovery bingo where I was trying all of these things. And I was also researching for my book. And I knew I wanted to write a book on burnout and I knew I needed to do more research. And so I just started interviewing and surveying thousands of high achievers. I worked my network, my dad's network, my friends' networks of like, who are the most successful people I know or that people I know, you know? And so that like, I could get connected to them because I wanted to make sure I was talking to people from all different walks of life. So I interviewed like Navy SEAL captains, retired diplomats who had worked with like 5 presidents, you know, New York Times bestselling authors, lawyers, CEOs of companies, doctors, Olympic athletes, celebrity coaches, like just a whole smattering of people. Because I wanted to make sure it was like a more holistic look. It wasn't like I was just looking at executives. At really trying to figure out like, how the hell do they do it? Like, what are they doing? You know, how have you managed to reach this level of success in your industry and not burn out? And if you have burned out, like, what did you learn along the way? You know, so I did probably 1.5 years of research, just trying to get as much data as I could. And then, combine that with my own skill set, my own tools that I had been using. And that's what I put into the book.
That's fantastic. So many parallels between how I started attacking burnout and what you're describing. I think there's like a type A way to deal with burnout.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, I have a problem. Great. Let me know everything about it. I'll research it. I'll study it. I'll write a book about it. You know, like, God, I never stop. But I definitely have learned a lot. And the reality is, I always say this all the time, like, you're not going to change somebody that goes 100 miles an hour to all of a sudden now they're like, have a 2-hour morning routine where they do a sauna and a cold plunge and they meditate and they do breathing exercises and they this and they sit in the sun for 20, like, you're not going to change someone from 100 to that. Okay. Like, so how do we, as these driven, motivated people, how do we just maybe dial it back? Can we start at like 95 miles an hour? Like, let's just dial it back a little, you know, and then get comfortable there. And then how do we go to 90 miles an hour? You know, like, can we just give ourselves a little more grace? Can we give ourselves a little bit more padding between those meetings? Can we give ourselves the afternoon off? Can we take a lunch break? You know, like there's so many little ways that we can start to peel things back a little bit. But I think a lot of times people have unrealistic ideas of what it's going to look like. And you can't change who you are inherently. But you can make small little shifts that start to make your life easier and better.
Now, when you
and eventually,
go ahead.
I was going to say, and eventually they start to feel normal and comfortable.
Yes. I mean, that's such a good reminder, right? It's the tiny tweaks that you need to start with. When you were interviewing all of this, the variety of people, were there any themes or did you find that a significant portion were actually achieving that success without the burnout? Or does it seem like burnout is part of the package and it's about how you deal with it?
I think a lot of them had a bout of like burnout or overwhelm, whether they called it burnout or not. And that could have been due to a number of things. It could have been due to a work situation, or it could have been due to a personal situation that was really causing them a lot of stress and strife in their life that was then affecting their work. We're crazy to think that all of the crap that happens in our personal life is never going to show up in our job. Like, the two are completely intertwined. And of course, what's happening in your personal life is going to play out in your professional life. We're not robots. I mean, we are human beings that have feelings. And of course, if we have heavy things happening at home, they're going to show up at work too. And so pretty much everybody, my dad always says nobody gets a free ride. And it's true. Pretty much everyone I spoke to had some sort of period of time that was difficult for them, whether that was at home or whether that was at work, that led them to a feeling of overwhelm, of burnout, of depression, of, it showed up in a number of different ways. But I think I was able to pull a lot of common threads and common themes from all of the information.
What was the most impactful advice from that series of conversations?
Oh God, there was so many. I mean, there's even only so much you can put in a book, right? Like I didn't want to write an 800-page book. Nobody wants to read that.
Right.
Like,
people suffering from burnout.
Yeah. Like nobody needs a list of 100 things they need to do to try and get rid of burnout. But I think some of the common themes that were really stood out to me, they're much simpler than I think most people think. I think as leaders and achievers, sometimes we overcomplicate things. We think, oh, I have this big job and I'm super overwhelmed. There's got to be like this super complicated thing I do or pay for to get me through it. The reality is most of the time it's really simple stuff that is just harder to execute. So things like just doing less. How do we just start to do less? And I don't mean do less of your job and like do a crappier job. I mean, do less of the things that drain you, that drain your time, your energy, your joy, or your resources. So how do we start looking really specifically at our calendars, at our days, at our weeks, and think like, how am I spending my time? What am I doing all day long? And are the things that I'm doing actually adding joy to my life? Or if they're not adding joy, are they moving the needle on the bottom line of the business? Or are they moving my relationship forward with a loved one? Are they adding to my health? Are they, because, we don't enjoy everything. Like sometimes things that we really need to do aren't going to bring us joy, but we know that they're really going to move the bottom line. So we're like, okay, this is an important thing to do, So not everything's going to bring you joy, but like, how can we start looking really, really critically at our schedules every single week and say, like, what is one thing I can take off? What is one place where I can just add in a little, I call them pockets of peace, like a little moment of happiness, a little moment of joy, a little pocket of peace that it's just that little bump, that little pick me up, that little thing that gives you a little pep in your step for maybe the next hour, for the next 2 hours. They don't need to get you through the next year, but when you're feeling overwhelmed and exhausted and drained, it could be 10 minutes of cuddling with your dog just makes you feel good for the next 2 hours, know? And these things, again, may seem insignificant, but they all really add up to helping you reconnect with your joy, reconnect with your purpose, reconnect with your people. And that's ultimately what helps carry us through these really challenging times.
Yeah. Did you find that it was significant to have those pockets of peace woven into your day as opposed to like when you start or when you end?
You mean having them like spread out throughout the day versus just doing them at the morning or in the evening?
Right. Yeah. Like, does it make a difference, like the breaking up of whatever you have going on from a work standpoint? Like, is there value in that?
Of course. But I just think if you're super overwhelmed and you have a lot going on, get them where you can. Let's not overcomplicate it. Let's not say, oh, it has to be every 3 hours or every 2 hours, or you need to do 4 a day. Like when you're starting from a place where your schedule's packed, you got too much crap on your plate, you're overwhelmed, you're exhausted, you're burnt out, take it where you can. Start there, If it's in the morning, fantastic. If it's spread out throughout the day, great. If it's just at the end of the day, that works too. If it's only on the weekend, we'll take it. Start where you can. Start incorporating some of these small little pockets of peace, these little moments of happiness, these little moments of joy as often and as much as you can. And, they really do add up to making you feel better and reconnecting you with things that get you fired up and that move the needle personally and professionally. I really hammer that point home again and again and again because it's just your life. It's not work and life balance. It's just life. And most of us have to work. Sadly, we're all not independently wealthy. So most of us have to work. So it's just life. And how do we incorporate both of these together so that they work together and they help us be more happy, healthy human beings?
Mm-hmm. And when you were working for the healthcare staffing company, was there anything specific for the healthcare industry that you were seeing that you want to flag? You know, I'm an investor in the healthcare industry, and there's a lot of people in that world that are listeners. So anything that you can say to that specific community?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, I have a lot to say on that. But one of the things, my last company, we funded a whole big research study on clinicians and what is causing them to burn out, what's making them happy, what's affecting, their relationship with work, how they show up, etc. And one of the major findings out of that was really making sure that we as healthcare leaders are checking in with our clinicians and asking them, how are you? It sounds so simple, but they don't need another pizza party. They don't need another, packed lunch. They need for you to care about them, for you to check in on them. And so we talked about doing wellness rounding. Any clinician knows that, and you work in a hospital, you do rounding with your patients.
Yeah.
How can we as leaders do wellness rounding with our clinicians and just check in with them and see how they're doing?
Yeah.
How are they feeling? What's going on in their life? What's happening in their personal life? What's bothering them? What's lighting them up? How can we continue to check in with them regularly and let them know that we care? And one of the simplest ways is literally just asking them, are you okay? How are you? That was what I can't remember exactly how many people we interviewed, but I know it was thousands. And that was the number one question that they wished that their leaders asked them is, how are you? Are you okay?
Yeah.
And it's so simple, but it's not done very often. We as leaders often, especially in a healthcare setting where time means life or death, we're often just straight in with the problem. What's happening with this patient? How's it going? What do they need?
Yeah.
And we don't actually ask the clinician, like, are you okay? How are you? What do you need?
Yeah.
So it's just a simple thing, but it came back in our research as like the number one thing that clinicians were wanting to be asked.
That makes so much sense. I mean, I think just any individual, it matters when someone is checking in on you, and you can tell when it's genuine and when it's not. It's just a good practice, I think, as people to start doing that.
Well, and also just saying like, how are you really? Ask them how they are. And most people will be like, oh yeah, I'm great. I'm fine.
Yeah.
Ask them again, how are you really? And usually you'll get a completely different response, because most of the time people ask how you're doing and they don't even care about the answer. It's just like, it just comes out of their mouth, like saying hi.
Exactly.
And we usually just say, oh yeah, I'm good. I'm fine. Even if our life is like a dumpster fire and completely falling apart, we're like, oh yeah, I'm fine. Because we don't want to go into it. But as a leader, you have to care about your people.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. So yeah, for the listeners, definitely take note of that and start doing it. Do you know how it manifested once it was implemented? I know you did the research behind it. That's a great finding. What about like after they were asked, on those rounds, how they work?
I don't have all of that data at my fingertips right now. We published it online, so you can check out with Aya Healthcare. All of the data and the research and everything's been published online. I don't have it right in front of me at the moment, though.
Yeah, no problem.
They released a whole white paper on it and all sorts of stuff. So there's all sorts of data and information there.
So what is the most exciting part of the, I guess, burnout realm for you now that you've talked to so many people, you've done your journey? What's lighting you up now?
What's lighting me up is knowing that the tools work. So it took me burning out to realize that I had to cultivate these tools, and they pulled me out of my burnout, but they also pulled me through last year, which was like hands down the worst year of my life. And I'll share with you kind of what happened last year because these tools pulled me out of that as well. And so they truly are powerful. And I outline them in my book, The Type A Trap, but I also really talk about them in my keynotes on stage. And if you follow me on social media, like you can find a lot of it there. Yeah. In a very short period of time, I lost a baby. My husband accidentally 3 weeks later killed our dog in a terrible accident. and our dog was only 3. And as people who don't have children, that dog was everything to us. And we had been trying for years to get pregnant. And so we'd done multiple rounds of IVF, miscarriages, all that stuff.
Yeah.
We went to go hear the heartbeat. There was none. So I lost the baby. 3 weeks later, he killed the dog. He went into a mental breakdown, had to call 911. He relapsed on a drug addiction, got him into rehab, had to start staging an intervention, got him into rehab. I ended up moving out. We had just bought this house. I literally only lived there for 7 months. Our marriage fell apart, put my stuff in storage, and literally lived out of a suitcase with friends and family. And thankfully, I travel so much for work as a speaker. Like for probably 6 months, I was just like a super nomad. And so like in the span of literally like 4 months, I lost my baby, my dog, my husband to drugs. He did not die, but you know what I mean? Like, lost my house. Not that we lost it, foreclosed it, but like I moved out. We ended up selling it. That was the first house I'd ever bought and owned. I only lived in for 7 months. I lost my dream of becoming a mother. Like that was a hell of a lot to unpack in a really short period of time. And the reality is the tools that got me through the burnout were the exact same tools I used to get me through this difficult period of time. And the beauty of this is that despite everything that happened, I had my best year I've ever had in business. I made more money than I'd ever made in my life last year. I spoke on big stages like for Tony Robbins and spoke for some of like the biggest brands in the world. My book came out, became an Amazon bestseller. Like the two can happen simultaneously. And that's one of the things that I really share on stage now and that I feel like resonates with people because we all go through periods of time where we're just like, oh my God, what the hell else is going to happen? And your scenario or situation may be different than mine, but I feel like so many people can relate to what I share in just having a period of time where you're like, oh my God, what else is going to happen? You know?
Yeah.
We've all had those periods of time, but despite all of that, you can still have a really great year in the other part of your life. And just because one thing is going poorly doesn't mean that everything has to go poorly. They can coexist. And these simple tools are free, they're accessible, they're easy to use of just doing less, recognizing what the problem is, diagnosing your burnout and your overwhelm, starting smaller, you know, like instead of building momentum, connecting with your joy, with your people, with your purpose, and repeating this process and integrating it into our days and our lives and our weeks, because it's not a one and done hack, you know? Yeah. Like this isn't just something we do once and then we're like, oh, I'll never have another problem in my life. Like shit happens. We're going to keep getting stuff thrown at us, you know? And so repeating these tools and these steps really can help pull you through these really hard times. And so I think for me, what's really fun now is being on the other side of it. And now my business this is going to be an even better year than last year, which is exciting. And like this being on the other side of it and having joy and life and excitement again, and knowing that like these really simple tools got me through that. It's fun for me to share that story on stage and on platforms like this, because I know so many people are carrying a lot of heavy stuff with them right now. And sometimes it can feel really overwhelming and it can feel like it's never going to get better. And it can feel like you're never going to not feel miserable. Yeah. But you can, and you will. It's fun for me to be able to share that story.
That's so powerful. Thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that. And it's such a good reminder that you can come out of the other side. Right? It's just so dark and heavy when you're in that storm.
Yeah. And we all face these challenges personally and professionally.
Yeah. And, you know, sometimes
everyone's situation's different. Yours might look different than mine, but it doesn't make it any less heavy or traumatic or hard.
Yeah. I like that you're referring to them as schools, because I think some people, when they're going through this process of burnout, it's almost like they think it's like a vaccine. Like, okay, now I'm protected. No, it's not a vaccine. It's a toolkit. You need to make sure that you're reminding yourself.
Like diet. I always say it's like diet and exercise. You know, you don't go to the gym once and eat really healthy one day, and all of a sudden you're in the best shape of your life for the rest of your life. It doesn't work like that. You gotta eat healthy and keep moving your body for the rest of your life. It's not a one and done thing. And preventing and overcoming burnout is the same thing. Like, we are going to keep getting stressed. We're going to keep having uncertainty and change, and bad things happen from time to time. That's gonna keep happening. And so we have to, like diet and exercise, we have to continue to flex this muscle and cultivate these tools and keep using them regularly so that when we do face those challenges, we're ready. We're ready for them.
Yeah. And for you personally, what are those things you go to revitalize yourself that you really enjoy, like you find deep joy in?
Yeah. So, I mean, the things that I really talk about in my talks are the same things that I use. It's not like I'm gatekeeping the real tools and I just give you the other ones, and it's things like doing less. How do I do less? I talked about this earlier, but I really have gotten strict on just saying no to stuff. Like, no, I don't. Thank you so much for the invitation. Sounds like a great evening, but I'm going to have to pass. I can't come tonight. I think people feel guilty saying no if they don't have anything else to do, because like you're technically available that night. So why should you be saying no to this invite? We feel like jerks, Yeah. It's easy to be like, no, I can't come. My kid has a soccer game. But we feel bad saying no to something if our alternative is just staying home and doing nothing. Yeah. But like, I have become really good at just saying no to things I don't feel like doing, and just being comfortable having JOMO, the joy of missing out. Perfect example. I have been traveling a ton for work. This has been a really busy season for me. I've been doing a ton of speaking engagements, which is amazing. But I was supposed to go to Napa with a bunch of my girlfriends recently for Memorial Day weekend. We go every year. I've been many times before, so it's not like I've never done this trip. And I used to live in Sacramento, so I used to go to Napa all the time. And I love my girlfriends, and we would have had a blast, and I would have loved to have seen them. But literally like 3 days before the trip, I just texted them and I was like, I'm not coming. I just can't. And I had tickets bought and all the things, but I was just like, I've been traveling so much. I was going to be coming home from a speaking engagement on Thursday and then leaving Friday to go fly up there. I was exhausted, and I just knew I just needed to be home for the weekend doing nothing, being a slug on my couch, not showering and wearing pajamas and my hair in a bun with no makeup. Like I just didn't want, as much as I would have loved to have seen that and I know I would have had fun, I was like, I'm not going. So like just being comfortable and knowing yourself well enough of like when to say no to things. And you don't have to have something else scheduled in order to say no. You can say no. And I always say, if we keep showing up for everyone else, we'll never show up for ourselves. And so how do we make sure that we're showing up for ourselves? Because if you are so drained all the time, showing up for everybody else, that's when you're going to get sick. That's when you're going to feel overwhelmed. That's when you're going to burn out.
Yeah. Yeah. It's got to feel just dead inside sort of feeling. Oh, that's powerful. I think everyone has had that feeling like, I wish I could just say no. And the answer is you can.
You can. And you don't have to be a jerk about it, and you don't have to lie. Like I really just, there's so many times where I'll get invited to a dinner or something and I'll just say no. And I say, oh my God, that sounds like such a fun night. Thank you so much for the invite. Unfortunately, I'm not going to make it. I'm just exhausted. I've been traveling a ton. I need a night at home.
Yeah.
Most people understand that because they feel the same damn way.
It's so true.
They just don't always say it.
I bet you some of them are like, thank you. You know what? I'm exhausted.
Yeah, exactly. Like we just think we've always got to reschedule plans. I'm like, no, you are an adult. You could just straight up cancel the plans.
Yes. Okay. Everybody listening, cancel one thing. Say no to one thing. Give yourself a little time back. That's great.
It feels great.
Is there anything that you want to leave the listeners with? Be either something that want them to think over and do, or even you have such a big mission and you're reaching so many people. Like, how can we help you in your mission?
I mean, a number of things. One, you can find me online, erinstafford.com. My book is The Type A Trap. It's available on Amazon. Would love your support. It is full of so many good tools and tricks and tips. If you have an organization that you work at that hires speakers for conferences or events, I would love for you to recommend me. I would love to come speak at your event. Follow me on social, Erin M. Stafford on Instagram and LinkedIn. And yes, like just my final thoughts are that one, I know it may feel completely overwhelming and like you're never going to get out of this, but you will, and you can, and you will get to the other side of it and come out so much stronger. And two, give yourself some grace. This doesn't happen overnight. This isn't a matter of, oh, just read the book and your life will be perfect again. It takes time. It takes time because inherently we're motivated, driven overachievers, and we're not going to change overnight. But these small little shifts really, truly add up to big changes in our lives. So give yourself grace, give yourself time, make some small changes. They truly do add up and you will get through it.
I couldn't say it any better. Thank you, Erin. It's been amazing having you and hearing everything that you have to offer. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it.
All right, to all the listeners, make sure you follow all of those recommendations and also remember to like and subscribe to the Burnout Club and watch us on YouTube and listen to the podcast anywhere that you can. Thank you. Bye.